everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today is going to be another installment of my Bare Necessities series. Today I'm talking about face products that are the base of all the rest of our makeup. So foundation, powders, concealers. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to talk about are foundations, and I picked two, and it's a tough thing because everyone has different skin types, everyone likes different foundations. There could be a foundation that is a holy grail for somebody, and then, you know, that person has oily skin, but then the person who has dry skin just absolutely hates that foundation. So it does depend. But the first one that I chose is one that I feel is really special because it does work for pretty much all skin types. And that's the Makeup Forever HD foundation. Now, I know that this is the old version. They just came out with a new Ultra HD foundation, which I actually did a first impression and demo on, so I will link that below if you haven't seen it. But just to give you a little sneak peek, I loved it. It's just a little bit more coverage than this one, and it's better. It's just a little more HD, which for most people doesn't really matter, but it's still a great foundation. It isn't super matte, so I'm a little bit oily on combination. So it works well for me because it's not too drying for when I have dry patches, but it doesn't get me too oily. I do have to touch up with powder, but that's not too different than any other foundation. And what's so wonderful about this one, and of course the new one as well, is that this just looks amazing in photos. So I wore this on my wedding day, as I spoke about in the video, and it looks flawless, but it doesn't look super cakey. It doesn't look, even you can build it up to, a fuller coverage, but it looks very skin-like. It looks natural. It doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't look heavy. It's just a beautiful foundation. So this is one of those that really works for everybody, and that's why I chose this as one of my top foundations. Now, the only reason I haven't bought the new one is because I still have plenty of this one, but as soon as I run out of this one, I will most definitely be buying the new one because I love it also. The other foundation I chose, I wanted to pick because it's something that's a little more full coverage, and it's something that works a little bit better for me because I have combination to oily skin. So this may not work for somebody who has super dry skin. So I just wanted to point that out. This is a foundation that is a little bit newer to me. And by new, I mean I've had it for less than a year. And that's the Tarte Amazonian Clay foundation. And it's a 12-hour makeup, it's oil-free, and it's full coverage. And it does have an SPF of 15, so a little bit of SPF. You probably want to use something else underneath, but nothing too high. So in photos, it wouldn't look terrible. What I love about this foundation is even though it says full coverage, it doesn't feel heavy. It seems like it's going to be because when you get this out of the tube, it's super, super thick, but it doesn't go that way on your face. It doesn't feel heavy, and it does cover really well. There are parts that you may need to build it up a little bit because it's not like crazy, crazy full coverage, but I think that works well because I can build it up in certain spots that I need, but otherwise it just covers really well. And I love the fact that this wears so long. It really does contain a lot of the oils on my skin. It wears for a very, very long time, but again, it doesn't feel heavy on my face. It doesn't feel like I'm wearing a full coverage foundation. I think that's pretty amazing for something like this that is super thick and full coverage, and I really, really love this one. So if you need something that lasts a long time and you have oily skin or you have combination oily skin, this is a great, great foundation. And it isn't drying, at least not for me, but again, if you had dry skin, I don't know how that would work. If you need a drugstore alternative to this, the L'Oreal Pro Matte is really great as well. That one is a little bit more drying. I need to apply that with a damp beauty blender. This one I can actually apply with a brush and it doesn't feel super dry. But if you needed a drugstore alternative, that is the way to go. Otherwise, this one. And it's not even as pricey as a lot of other foundations, so it's a really great foundation. So moving on to concealers, the first one that I'm going to talk about is more of a spot concealer. So it's not necessarily the one that I'm going to wear underneath my eyes, although I did wear it underneath my eyes for many years. This is a concealer that I've been buying for years and years and years. I can't even tell you how many of these I've bought. I've gone through so many of these. So I used to use it all over my face. Now I just use it for spots. And this is the Laura Mercier Secret Concealer. It comes in a little pot like this, and it's just a super creamy concealer. And so you buy this in your skin tone and use it to cover up spots. I'm actually wearing it today, and It's just really easy to cover up. It is creamy, so you have to make sure to set it with powder, even if that wasn't something that you normally did. But it does cover up really well. You can layer it on top of powder if you touch up the spot, put on a little bit of powder, and then if it's still showing, put a little bit more, then add a little bit more powder, and it doesn't really get too cakey unless you go crazy. This is just a really trusty concealer that, again, I've been buying for many, many years, and you can use it underneath your eyes. Like I said, I did do that for many years, but it is pretty creamy, so it does tend to crease a little bit more than the average concealer. But if you have dry skin, that might work well for you, and you can just set it with a powder. So Laura Mercier Secret Concealer, great concealer. The other two concealers I have are a little more for underneath the eyes. So the first one is the trusty MAC Pro Longwear Concealer. This is a favorite of lots of people, and for good reason, because it's a fantastic concealer. I don't typically use this to cover up spots over my face. This is more of an underneath the eyes concealer and then throughout the face to brighten up. So I bought this in a shade that's a little bit more brightening, but it is super full coverage. It isn't drying. It doesn't crease as much as other concealers, and it just works so well. I'm wearing it underneath my eyes today and then on my nose, my forehead. I used it to just brighten everything up, and it covers up so well. And as long as you set it with a powder, then it shouldn't really crease on you, which is really amazing. The only annoying thing, of course, which many people talk about, is the packaging. It's in a glass container, so I would not recommend traveling with this. I haven't done that because I've seen so many people drop this and crack it, and then there's nothing you can really do because it's glass. So that's a little bit crazy. Plus, it's in this little pump, which, as you can see, gets pretty messy, and it's also a little hard to figure out how much you need. You end up a lot of times using a little more or taking out a little more than you actually need. But it is worth it. So, definitely a little bit of a complaint as far as the packaging goes, but it's still a really, really great concealer, so it's worth it. Now, another underneath the eye concealer that I love that is drugstore is the Maybelline Age Rewind Dark Circle Eraser. So this I have in the shade Brightener. And so it has a little bit more of a pinky tone to it, so it's pretty brightening, as it says, and it has that peachy tone, so it cancels out some of those blue tones underneath your eyes. They also have this in a more yellowy toned one, but then they also have it in just regular skin tone colors, so you can get one that's a little bit lighter to brighten up. But I really like this shade because it is pretty brightening, and I can use it throughout my face to highlight as well. But if you're someone with yellow toned skin, you'd want to go for the more yellow toned one. I think it's called the Neutralizer. But this concealer in general is really, really good, and it's really inexpensive from the drugstore, and it's fantastic. Again, it's not really meant to cover up blemishes, so I wouldn't use it for that, but underneath the eyes, especially throughout the face, it's really, really great. Another complaint about the packaging. I know both of these concealers, I'm complaining about the packaging, but it has this little, sponge tip, which you're supposed to be able to kind of blend it in with that, but you never get it to that point where you can actually blend it all the way in, so I don't really see the point. Plus it's kind of, a little bit dirty to have that on there because you use it like on your face, and it gets really dirty too. So, that's kind of annoying, but it's great, and, it's super inexpensive, and I like that you can see, because you twist it and then you can see it kind of go down and you see how much you're using, which is really nice too. So great concealer. The last things that I have are powders. So one is a powder foundation and the other is just a loose setting powder. So the first one is my powder foundation, and that is the MAC Studio Fix powder foundation. So I have this in the color NC20, which it's a little confusing with MAC because actually NC is, you want to refer to it more as not cool, so this is more of a warmer toned, and NW is not warm, so it's a little more pink toned. So I've been using this for a while and it looks like I haven't even touched it, so that's one great thing. It comes with a little sponge in here if you wanted to actually travel with it, and it has a mirror. But this is just great because I truthfully most of the time use this to set my foundation. I used it today actually. So it can add a little extra coverage. So if you're wearing a foundation that is a little bit light, you can add a little extra coverage with this, especially like throughout the day, you know, with touch-ups. If you needed to add a little bit more, if your foundation wore away, this is great. But I also love using this on days where I'm not gonna wear a foundation, and whether I don't have time or I don't feel like wearing foundation, I'll wear a little bit of concealer underneath my eyes, any blemishes, and then I'll just, you know, buff this all over my face, not with the sponge, you know, just with like a powder brush. And I just sort of buff this through my face, and it just adds a little bit of something to kind of even out my skin tone, but it doesn't look like I'm wearing really much makeup at all. So I love this. So the last thing I have is a loose powder, and this is the Laura Mercier Translucent Setting Powder. It does look like it has a beigey tone to it, but it really is supposed to be translucent. And this is great because this works for underneath the eyes, but it also works for all over the face. It's super light. It keeps everything really matte. And I gotta tell you, I've had this for years. And I mean, yes, I use other things, but I do use this a lot. And I mean, there's still a good amount of powder in there. I mean, I'm, you know, getting close, but this lasted a really long time. So yes, it's a little bit pricey because it's Laura Mercier, but it really does last a very, very long time, and it's fantastic. And this works well if you want to do the whole cooking or baking method, where you put powder on and let it sit before you brush it away. This works really well for that. But it makes everything look really nice and set and smooth, but it doesn't look cakey, powdery. So this is a really fantastic powder, and I definitely recommend it. All right, everyone, so that is it for today's Bare Necessities. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned about a product that maybe you didn't know about before. Let me know in the comments below what you would have chosen for one of these categories. I would love to hear your thoughts. Like this video if you enjoyed watching. Please subscribe if you are not subscribed already. I would just love that. And I hope to see you next time. Bye.